Welcome to a special edition of Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life. Today's episode features Dr. Bobby Robbins, a physician and surgeon, educator, and university leader whose career spans medicine, research, and higher education at the highest levels. He's currently a visiting distinguished fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, where he focuses on the future of higher education, healthcare, and national policy. Dr. Robbins previously served as president of the University of Arizona and as president and CEO of the Texas Medical Center, bringing together clinical excellence, institutional leadership, and a long-standing commitment to student success. Trained as a cardiothoracic surgeon at Stanford, his early career was defined by saving lives one patient at a time, before expanding his impact by leading complex institutions serving tens of thousands of students. In this conversation, Dr. Robbins shares his perspective on leadership, mentorship, and the responsibilities universities carry in a rapidly changing world. He discusses why outcomes matter, how institutions can better support students, and why Texas, particularly Texas A&M, is uniquely positioned to lead in innovation, research, and workforce development. This episode explores what it means to lead with purpose, scale impact responsibly, and build institutions that prepare people not just for their first job, but for a lifetime of contribution.
Well, welcome to a special edition of Uncharted. I've got a special guest here that came into town. I said, we got to get you on film. Bobby Robbins, Dr. Bobby Robbins. Do you go by Bobby or Robert, or what's your professional?
Bobby, one day maybe Robert, but when I grow up, but I go by Bobby. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, Bobby.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on your show, Dan. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I think that there's so much, as you know, we've talked about the show and the work that we've done. Bobby is actually an advisor to founding up and some of the work that we're doing. And I want to, as you know, the show's about mentorship. It's about how important it is for us to be able to give our life information and pass that information to others, so that the world just continues to grow. And so I definitely wanted to get you on because it's just your deep background. Why don't we start off so the audience gets to know you a little bit further? Let's start off with what you do today, and then we'll jump into how you got here. So, yeah, what do you do here today in the last few years? Like, what's led up to this?
Yeah, so from 2017 until October of 2024, I was the president of the University of Arizona in Tucson.
Okay.
And then once I finished that, I've been a visiting distinguished fellow at the Hoover Institute back at Stanford, where I spent 23 years of my life before coming here to Texas to be the president and CEO of the Texas Medical Center before I went to Arizona to be the president.
Oh, wow. So lots to unpack there. You're also in health. So to be president, you were also, did you have a practice as well, or?
Well, when I was at Stanford, I was a cardiothoracic surgeon at Stanford, and was the department chair and the founding director of the Stanford Cardiovascular Institute. So I spent most of my career there. So I did heart surgery, transplants, bypass valves, all kind of technical operations, but also ran a big research lab, and then was involved in educating the next generation of cardiac surgeons.
Yeah. So much to like, when I'm listening to this, I'm like, oh, where does my mind go with questions? Because I think the best way to go is like, it sounds like you've got a passion for medicine and for health, and you've got a passion for education. And so no surprise that we ended up knowing each other.
Right.
We got that passion for education and kind of finding identity, right? I just to get to know you a little bit better, when you were 10, 12, 13 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I wanted to be a physician. So I was fortunate enough to grow up in a little town in Jones County, Mississippi.
Okay.
As Lane Kiffin calls it, the SIP.
The SIP.
Yeah, he's now at LSU, so that's probably not a term that'll be used much, but it's catchy. But my maternal grandparents raised me in a small town called Ellisville, Mississippi, in Jones County. It's about between Laurel and Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Hattiesburg has the University of Southern Mississippi. The only reason you would know that is Brett Favre went to school there, and back when I was a kid, Ray Guy went to school there, and Jimmy Buffett attended the University of Southern Mississippi.
All right.
So that's in Hattiesburg. So that was about 10 miles south of Ellisville.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather was a math teacher at a community college, still known as Jones County Junior College.
Okay.
He taught math there for 47 years.
Wow.
And it was definitely a blessing that I was raised on that little campus. And I think looking back, it probably helped with my interest. Obviously, I was very focused on being as good a heart surgeon as I could be, and being at a place like Stanford was an incredible blessing. But I always had in the back of my mind what I really cared about was students and helping them succeed, sort of paying it forward, because from where I grew up, my grandfather, I think when he retired in 1972, was probably making less than $7,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to go from that humble upbringing to Stanford and then Texas Medical Center and University of Arizona was a true blessing.
Yeah, no, it always amazes me. I always say that every one of us is a map, because we follow a certain path, right, for our life and the twists and turns. And then others that listen to the story use that as a mapping system for ourselves. What can I do like that person, or what business can I make? So it's interesting that you had your calling even very, very young. You wanted to be a physician at that point in time, but there's always the second thing. I was still students and people I talk to, is like, it's never linear. It's never I want to do this and be that. It's like, that's point A, and there'll be point B and point C, and those kind of things. So at what point did you shift from, like, because you had this other thing in your head, at what point did you shift from like cardiac surgery and that passion to education?
Well, I think it was always embedded in me, as I said, growing up on this little college campus. I ran around the campus. There were about 2,000 students in this little town, and I ran all over the campus, and I would go sit and listen to lectures, either my grandfather teaching math, but I was kind of drawn to the biology and those kind of classes, and I would just literally sit outside the window, sit up in a tree and look in and watch, and then go in after class and talk to the professors, because they all lived right on campus and I knew them.
Yeah.
And I was a small kid. So I knew that I've always lived on a campus.
Yeah.
And even at Texas Medical Center, I lived as close to the medical center as possible, because I think the incredible power and life-changing events that go on at universities can help students realize their hopes and dreams so they can go out and serve the world better.
I love it.
Yeah.
What I'm also hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is being that close to these locations provided you opportunity for mentorship. A lot of people that you could, you said you love listening to the lectures, and I'm sure that was inquisitive, but also asking of others. Is that the case as far as?
Yeah, no doubt. If I go back, and when I talk to students, that's one of the big points that I think why we connected, although we've never really talked about it in detail. But find good mentors and advisors in your life, and go to them and ask, because a lot of students are too shy about doing that. But I would encourage everybody to find good mentors in your life, either your academic life or the life outside of your studies. Your social network is really defined by who do you go to outside of work when you have tough decisions to make? Who can you really lean on? And so I think, and there's been a lot of studies that have shown that, even Framingham Heart Study and things like that, different groups of people have their different social networks.
Yeah.
Who do you spend time with outside of work or school, and who do you go to when you need to really get advice on tough decisions?
Right.
And I think a lot of it gets formed early before you even get to the universities, about what your passion is for life. For me, it happened to be medicine, and I went to a small liberal arts college in Jackson, Mississippi called Millsaps College, and it was incredible because I had the faculty to student ratio for advising and getting to know them and mentoring you was a lot easier than, say, some big university where the ratios that we've talked about may be 300 advisees to one advisor, or even 1,000 students.
Right.
And it's very difficult to find those mentors in that way. But as I progressed along and went to medical school, I went across the street to the University of Mississippi Medical Center, and the individual who did the first ever heart transplant into a human was the chair of the Department of Surgery in Mississippi.
Wow.
His name was James D. Hardy. Now, he put a chimpanzee heart into a human in 1964 before Dr. Shumway at Stanford, who was one of my greatest mentors. I can remember going to Dr. Hardy and saying, I really want to be a heart surgeon. He said, well, there's only one place you need to go. You need to go to Stanford and work for Norm Shumway.
Wow.
And that happened. But Dr. Hardy, and then there was a guy named Arthur C. Guyton, Dr. Arthur C. Guyton, who was from Mississippi, and he went to Harvard, to Brigham and Women's Hospital there, and was a neurosurgeon. And he was going to be the next great neurosurgeon in the world. And he contracted polio.
Okay.
And he couldn't operate anymore, so he came back to Mississippi. His father had been the medical dean of the medical school, and it was a 2-year medical school, and it moved from Oxford, the Ole Miss's campus, to Jackson, because that's where the population was, in 1955, and established a 4-year medical school. So when I came along to medical school, which was in 1979, they had been there, and I was lucky to have both of them as mentors. Dr. Guyton was the foremost physiologist in the world. Even though he was disabled by polio, he still really forwarded the concept that your blood pressure is controlled by the renin-angiotensin system that comes from your kidneys. And, if all things were fair, he would have won the Nobel Prize in medicine. But yeah, and so he had 10 children. They all went to Ole Miss because they could go tuition free, and then all went to Harvard Medical School except one who got a PhD at Duke. So he had a couple of heart surgeons that were his children, a couple of orthopedic surgeons, an anesthesiologist, an ophthalmologist, on and on. So those two mentors advising me and helping me chart my path to go work with Dr. Shumway at Stanford was truly life-changing.
Wow. I talk about mentorship a lot, obviously, in the podcast, and I liken it, and one of our guests said this: a mentor is, and I'd like to get your take on it, a mentor is someone who, you're living in the city in the valley of between a couple of mountains. A mentor can bring you out to the top of the mountain and show you the whole thing, and it gives you just a different perspective. So I thought that was a great analogy. Does that resonate with your experience, or can you just elaborate on how you felt about the importance of those mentors in your life?
Yeah, I think it's a spot-on analogy, and I really like it. I'm going to steal it.
Okay.
But I think a lot of times you learn from your failures and mistakes. And so to be able to trust someone who takes the time to be interested in you and give you the best life coaching that they can give you, I would encourage all people, no matter if they're in university or business or whatever, to seek these people out, to trust them, but listen to them because they've had the experience and they can show you the 30,000-foot view.
Right.
When you're just trying to think about where do I go next for what I want to do.
I love it. Well, let's shift now. Thank you for giving everybody an idea of your background, which is there's a lot more to uncover there.
Yeah, I want to say that the question about how I went from medicine to being a university president is a good one because there are not any cardiac surgeons who've left cardiac surgery to go this pathway. But again, I thought it was so important for as a heart surgeon, you can help one patient at a time. You can help because the training that you do of the trainees over, a 30-year career in training them. I've got cardiac surgery trainees all over the world. So they're helping multiple patients at a time. And then the research is really important because you can make fundamental discoveries that can be a force multiplier and amplify all the things that you do. So one of the things that being the president got me a little bit too far away was the ability to individually mentor and advise students. I would give my cell number to everybody I met, whether it's faculty, staff, alumni, students, and would say, if you want to come talk to me, just text me or call me, and we can sit down and meet. So I carried about 25 or so students every year that I would meet with regularly. Most of them obviously wanted to go into health professions, but some wanted to go to law school or engineering school or business school. And so that was probably the most satisfying part of my job, was to have that hands-on ability to be a mentor to these students so that they could, again, realize their hopes and dreams and go out and make the world a better place.
I love it. And it's a perfect segue because what I heard you say is the passion that I had, I wanted to scale it.
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to be able to affect more than one person. I had a similar experience when I was in wealth management. I could help so many families at a time, but I wanted to scale and do more. And so, and that leads us to the work that we started to do together. So as you know, Founding Up is about scaled mentorship.
Right.
Until AI came out, that wasn't possible. Mentorship, it was like go peck and find a mentor and see. But the background in media that I've gotten and some of the experiences, taking those stories, all the interviews that I've had, and actually applying them into an AI mentor. And so that gave us the idea of mapping mentorship to individuals. And now a person could have mentors 24/7. You mentioned something a little earlier that is some of the larger issues that we have found is facing universities and across students across the nation, and that's the ratio of advisors to student, right? So you've got anywhere from 300 to 1,000 advisors for student. We hear this, and so what that means when I'm hearing that is like these advisors are the ones that can help the student to kind of find a path, and if they can't get to that student for a month to 6 weeks, then you have a lot of students that are lost. And our own experience, and I'm sure your experience in talking to students, they just feel this loss, and it's a big risk for them. That's when I'm hearing what you said, I just kind of connected all those dots.
Yeah, so I think you're right. Your example of wealth management, individuals at a time, cardiac surgery, individual patients at a time, which was incredibly fulfilling and a great mission in life to have. But to be able to scale it to 50, 75,000 students, and I couldn't help each one individually, but overall, we did a strategic plan where for the university where we engaged over 10,000 stakeholders, and of the nearly 100 initiatives that we had, more than half of them were focused on student success and how do we help the students. So obviously, I'm a big believer in what you're doing and the ability to use AI and machine learning algorithms to scale the mentorship and advising of students. You still have to find those real humans in your life to help you.
100%.
But this is a major problem for universities because the nexus between what the university wants to achieve, which is helping their students be successful, what the students want to achieve, which is they want to be able to find their passion, identify what route they want to go down. It's not a 4-year, it's a 40 or 60-year life journey they're going to have after university. And then where it's lost, in my opinion, is trying to, and I think we do this very, very inefficiently, trying to connect students to job opportunities for employment.
Yeah.
So having AI or bots or agents that can help to guide students along their way, I think is going to be a game changer and a force multiplier. But the connection has to be between the university, the student, and the potential employer.
Right.
Because I think the employers were probably telling you they have a lot of difficulty identifying talent in universities. So if you can build an enterprise network that could help to solve this problem, it would go a long way in helping students be more successful.
Right. Well, and that's exactly what we're doing is connecting those 3 dots. And so, which is what I identified back working with families and financial planning is trying to figure out the outcomes, right? Because we were always, everything in life you plan for has an outcome. It's retirement. Where do you want to retire? What does that look like? And let's work backwards from there. When it came to universities, I found that the question wasn't, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, what university do you want to go to?
Right.
That was what we were taught as planners. And so that was the first thing that just felt off to me because it was, these kids have to find their identity, and it's hard for them in our society to find it from their parents because their parents represent 2 lines of work, right? Maybe more, but not the plethora of work that's out there, of the kinds of opportunities. And so one thing that I noticed in this identity issue, because it's an identity issue first before anything else, is that parents were have been shoving their kids into school. Just this is what you're supposed to do. Next thing you go here and you go find yourself. And at one point, it was affordable to do that. At one point, 20, 30 years ago, we could work part-time and go to school and then figure it out. But as expenses for universities just over the years have grown at such a clip that now it's a much more risk. It's much more risk to say, I'm going to go find myself and I'm going to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a semester or a year to do that. And I have felt it personally in talking to students where they're like, I'm so nervous. I don't know what major to pick. And so there's a different pressure there. And so seeing this identity, seeing us kind of put the cart before the horse these days was something that we looked at as a way to, we can identify genius within, we can identify opportunities within. But the other thing that I noticed was that because you didn't know what you wanted to be, a lot of times you were gifted that you wanted to be a doctor when you were young. And that's like maybe 10% of people we talk to have that early on. Most people were like, well, what do they teach in university? And there's like 6 professions. And it's like doctor, lawyer, accountant, architect, nurse, and there's one other that comes
Engineer, probably.
Engineer, exactly. You named it. And so what I started noticing in all the kids that were, of the families that we were serving, that was the same answer. So the imagination wasn't there as to what, there's over 200,000 different types of jobs out there. So, so hitting the nail on the head on some of these issues. And what I love about our discussions is that you're seeing it from the other side. I see it from the side of talking to students and families. You're seeing it from the educator side. We've talked to many universities. And we're at this tipping point where there's a lot of things that are happening that are issues for universities. So universities actually at one point had a different kind of way of doing things, but now when you've got a smaller pool of students, so Gen Z is smaller than the last generation, which is smaller than the last generation. So you got a smaller, so that makes any business when you're economics go down. But then you've got this thing, AI, which, what do you do with it? Because we used to train at university for knowledge and memorization and everything else. And now it's like when calculators came out, it's like, what do you do with the calculator? Because it does all this math for us. Same thing with AI. Now it does all the knowledge work. So you've got these gaps. And then you've got these employers that are also, one, they're frustrated because as soon as, it looks like back in the internet age, things just started speeding up so much quicker. And it took longer to approve a new course to be taught than the software has changed, and you get to learn something else.
Right.
And so you started seeing employers shift to taking students from university, but they weren't ready yet. I got to do my own training to get them. And that's what we see a lot today. So there's a valley of readiness in that. And so for the first time, I think in history, we're seeing this trifecta of like readiness to be employed, what's going on with AI, and then smaller student base. So that creates some issues, at least from what I saw, but also you can feel free to talk about some of that.
Yeah, I think you've hit on an important topic. When I talk to employers, they generally say, we expect that the students are going to come out proficient at whichever of those 6 we just talked about. They're going to understand the fundamentals of engineering or the issues around law or business, the fundamentals. But what we need the universities to do is really
Next up, part 2,
teach and provide
mentorship, and how Leonie learned to treat the world as her teacher.
Communication skills, collaborative teamwork, working in teams, because, unless you're an artist creating something on your own, even as a cardiac surgeon, there may be teams of 50 to 100 people working on one patient across their health journey. So I think those are important aspects for our universities to really to look at. The other thing that you mentioned is you spend all this money and you have all this debt, and then you have a job that you're going to be paying the debt back for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Was it really worth it? Or I talk to so many young people who say, I'd rather just go to a trade school and become a welder or a plumber or an electrician or something like that. And that's great because there's opportunities out there. But I think with universities, we're, as you said, at a critical inflection point of what is the value proposition? Meaning, how much debt do students graduate with, and what kind of job do they get that is going to be fulfilling to them, will be a purpose-driven life, but also where they can make a good living, a financial living. So that's why the data that I think that has not been curated in an efficient manner to look at these issues. I think in a big sense, you can take the data about, de-identified, what is the earning potential of our graduates? And you're seeing the federal government start to, just like with healthcare. I always say that healthcare and higher education are very similar in my mind, and that's not obvious or intuitive at first glance. But as you look at healthcare, I've always said I used to get paid for doing an aortic valve replacement regardless of what the outcome is.
Right.
Patient could have a stroke or they could die. I still got paid. Universities still get paid for students regardless of what the outcome is. If they're not retained and they drop out, if they can't afford it, and they don't have any way to pay the money back if they're borrowing money. So just like with medicine, where quality outcomes are being introduced into reimbursement, I believe the same thing. We're coming very rapidly towards universities being held accountable for what kind of jobs did your students get and how much debt did they have. That's going to be an incredibly important metric.
Wonderful. I was just talking to president of the Texas Higher Education Board Foundation, and he was talking about a very similar conversation they were having. It was all about outcomes, and he told me that they had just spent, I don't know how many millions of dollars for this data, but to be able to understand what every course cost, how much debt was taken for every course, and then what the outcome was, because everybody's starting to look at this. And so gone are the days when that didn't matter because you get a degree and you get a job and move forward. Now it's so much more specialized and so much bigger of a gap than there was before because of how fast technology moves, that you've got to start figuring out what those outcomes are. Because the reason we started Founding Up to begin with, and the whole thought process behind that and the magazines and everything else that I've done, was because as I'm sitting as a financial planner, I'm looking at this college debt thing for the nation. It was $1.6 trillion at the time, second only to housing. And it was going to overtake housing in 2042. So to me, I just felt, as from a legacy perspective, at that point, she was 15-year-old daughter in a different generation. I just didn't want that outcome for that generation. I wanted her life to have a brighter future than mine. And the way I was looking at it, the way the directions were going, it wasn't that. So thanks for touching on that. That is exactly the experience that we're seeing. And so part of the work that we're doing is helping individuals find identity first and be more efficient. You find identity first, and we can do that. They say through the algorithms that Walmart knows you're pregnant before you do, just because the algorithms are built to know you. So if we can take that, understand the geniuses within, and then point you in that direction, along with pointing them to opportunity, now you've got a map, and now it's just along the way, how efficient can we get to that place? So yeah, that's really interesting of what you were saying about the outcomes, because that data is important. Everybody's starting to pay attention, from parents to politicians. We were talking to Chancellor's office here in Texas, and they were saying that is front and center what is being told to them as what they need to be paying attention to. So I'm excited about that. What else is universities? We know that the advising to student ratio is tough. I guess retention is another big thing that universities are facing across the nation. Recruitment.
It is, and oftentimes, retention usually falls into a couple of categories, a couple of broad categories. One, students that don't retain. If you really do a deep dive on why it is, one, they can't afford it. I mean, I used to talk to students who are working 3 jobs to try to pay, or either they will pay their tuition and room and board and living expenses, or they will work for a semester, then drop out or take a break and go do a job, get enough money to come back and go full-time students. So that's a big issue. Funding of the university is always a big issue. Where the funds come from to run the university. And obviously the universities can be more efficient, but there's a finite amount of money that comes in. The largest single source of most universities is student tuition. So you have to pay attention to being good stewards and efficiency of how you run the university. But there are other big issues about that we've touched on and you highlighted, about people are oftentimes choosing not to go to university because they didn't identify what it is they really want to do. They just knew they need to go to college. And they get there, and especially a big place, you get confused. There are, particularly through the COVID era, we saw a really increase in the amount of mental health issues, whether it be anxiety or loneliness or depression around being isolated and not having a social network that worked for them, and not really having that purpose-driven life toward one goal. And oftentimes, people can pick, I want to go into business, or I want to go to medical school, and giving them the framework to fail. Maybe they changed their mind. Maybe they just couldn't get the prerequisites done, and giving them alternatives to new possibilities for their careers. I think that's going to be really important. Funding for research. Research is a big issue for universities, and I think it's a national security interest, because so many of the great discoveries come out of our research-intensive universities. Like in Texas, there are great universities that do this kind of research, but the federal government also is signal that they want better outcomes
Right.
For the money that they're investing in grants and things like that, whether it be the National Science Foundation or National Institute of Health, Department of Energy, Department of Defense. It's more like not give a block grant for
Right.
things, but specific targets that they want to see hit. You're always going to have, quote, undifferentiated investigator-initiated research that these funding agencies will take on, because that's where a lot of the big ideas come from. But for the big grants, like at University of Arizona, we had a large astronomy program, and we would get grants from NSF or other funding agencies to fund that kind of work. Much of it is like the space program. The spinoffs from it, you could never predict, but it's a good investment, a good ROI long term.
Yeah.
So I think those are the major issues around what universities are facing and the relevance of what their mission is, and that's why I'm big on the mission statement and the values of a university, and that you live those values daily.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So as you were talking about that, I was thinking about, direction, and you're much more interested in if you know the map and if you know the endpoint and you know that goal. That's why vision boarding is so important, because you can put that vision out there. Like, these are the things I'm working at. I'm not there yet, but I can get there. And so having that direct map kind of gets you engaged, keeps you retained. Some of the things that we looked at from a retention standpoint is you have a lot of first-year enrollees, and then they drop off. And it's not that they sometimes don't just stop going to school. They may go to another institution. It's probably because they weren't they weren't well prepared to be in the first place. They didn't know what their identity was. And so they questioned that after the first year, that debt that they've incurred or money that's being spent. And they're like, well, let me go do this now because I'm going to go try. So they're just fishing versus having that identity. So that's why that's so important. So that's I know we've also talked about, your love for, obviously the country, but also love for some of the things going on in Texas, especially now with we talked about AI being a pressure point for that universities have to consider. And some of the things that we're noticing in Texas is a lot of data centers are being built here. Power can be generated here. We know that's going to take a lot. And so, I want to talk about some of the things that you know about some of the universities here, because I think that you mentioned that there's some opportunities here that are unique.
Yeah, I think that, obviously, if you look back, going back to Stanford, I'm very appreciative that I was able to spend some time at the Hoover Institute, where I currently am. But if you go back to the start of the internet, and even the vision that the Stanford leadership had post World War II, that research money from the federal government was going to be really important, and that led to the Silicon Valley. It actually sort of started here in Austin, and had great success in Silicon Valley in California. But a lot of that came out of Stanford, because the leadership had the vision that this is where the future is going to be. The internet started. I would say that the next generation of the internet is going to be probably something in quantum networking, but AI obviously has been a major role. In order to be able to have powerful computing power to run these algorithms and the artificial intelligence in the algorithm, you have to have a lot of energy. And so obviously a lot of people have understood that Texas is the place, because there's great support for the universities and higher education here. There's ample opportunity for good business practices and taxes and things that are
Business friendly. Yeah.
It's definitely a business friendly state that California is not necessarily. And you're seeing a lot of companies move from California to Texas or Florida. But Texas, really, with the the focus on energy and being able to provide the energy to run these big supercomputers and data centers is going to be incredibly important going forward. And I also think, too, the state being as diverse as it is, and bringing back healthcare in, the opportunity for improving the health of all Texans. I think the state understands that. There's, Texas is a big place, and there's certainly Dallas and San Antonio and Austin and Houston, but a lot of people out in this vast state need better access to rural healthcare. The other thing is, even in Houston or San Francisco or Miami, the barrier to finding a doctor and getting an appointment and getting good medical care is so difficult because we don't have enough trainees.
Right.
That's why I encouraged. We had not one but two medical schools in Arizona, one in Phoenix and one in Tucson, and we wanted to double the number of students that we were turning out. Nursing school, pharmacy school, physical therapy school, PA school, nurse practitioner. All of these healthcare providers are going to be really important as it gets more and more difficult to get access to good healthcare. So I think that Texas is is the bellwether for the country of where some of these innovative new approaches using technology, being in a business-friendly state with great support of university systems could be a case study and an exemplar for the rest of the country.
Yeah, it could be the next wave. So what Stanford was for the internet, Texas can be for the AI.
Yep.
And quantum computing, as you were talking about. I see that too. We've seen that, and people that we're talking to is just UT's amazing, A&M's amazing. I think A&M's got 3. It's got a space grant, sea grant, and
land grant.
Yes. And so they've got the land, and there's a lot of also connected
and
to
multiple campuses, so that maybe someone doesn't want to go to College Station, to the flagship campus, but may want to go to the campus in Corpus Christi or somewhere else. So I think there is enormous potential in the state of Texas. Obviously, these are two of the greatest universities in the country. There are other good universities in the state, Rice University, University of Houston, North Texas, others. But I think these two big flagship AAU universities, and especially A&M being, as you said, the land grant with cooperative extension programs in every county in the state. And so the idea of providing solutions to rural health care and using technology, so much of what we need has to do with access to Internet of Things and mobile devices and AI algorithms that help in healthcare. It's not going to displace the frontline care and the human touch, but it's going to enable people to do their jobs better in not only healthcare but business, supply chain, engineering, even law. Writing briefs. So you're never going to displace humans. But it's going to be an enabling tool to help you do your jobs better.
I see there's so many people that have fears around AI and everything else, but I see what you're saying is like there's also such a need. The baby boom generation, the biggest generation, is getting to need a lot more healthcare, right? And so having universities that pay attention to that and using AI to those advantages and being able to hit the rural areas with a lot more. I think there's just so many more benefits to that. And I also know, I think, and you might be more versed, A&M was doing a new medical center, I think, in Houston, or not?
Yeah, they have a program in Houston in the Texas Medical Center that sort of merges. I think the term they use for it is physicianeers, engineering backgrounds in medicine, so that people can go in with that engineering background of solving problems and identifying problems, not only in creating a better knee replacement or a better diagnostic tool, but just the supply chain and how patients navigate the system. AI is going to be a big part of that. But that's a good program that they have down in the Texas Medical Center. Arizona State just opened a new school that's sort of based off of the experience that University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And the other thing that A&M has done really well is forwarding this concept of One Health, which is the intersection of human health, animal health, and environmental factors.
Okay.
And so that's another thing I think is going to be really, really important, and that's where Texas can be a world leader.
Well, I am from Texas most all my life, but first birthday was in Texas. I was born in Virginia, but been here all my life. And Texas has this pride about how we do things. And I know that you get part of that because you have some roots in Texas, but also in other places. And I'm proud to see all these opportunities showing up for us here, and hoping that everybody takes a hold of the opportunity and sees it the way we do. It's like, this could be the next. I think Stanford, and Silicon Valley. I mean, that rose industries that were worth trillions of dollars.
Right. And
so the opportunity is Texas has that opportunity now, which is really, really cool to see. What's next for you? What you've had a storied life, and you've been able to do. I know that you're a big football fan and things of that nature. But so what's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I enjoyed, I think being the president of a university is the greatest job in the world. My friends, may not agree with that. My social network may not agree with that. But I think it's the highest calling that one could have. And the honor and privilege of leading a large land-grant university was the biggest thrill in my life. I do miss operating. I'm probably not going to go back to operating, and will continue to look for opportunities to lead another university at some point.
Yeah.
It's a complex job. It's a difficult job, but I relish the joy of doing that on a day-to-day basis. And athletics is a big part of any major university. And that landscape is changing. We could do a whole podcast on the future of college athletics.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to come back and do that with you.
Yeah, for sure. We'd have to have you.
But yeah, I'm blessed with having this opportunity to be back at the Hoover and think about policy issues around healthcare, higher education, which I think the higher education part is the one that's so intriguing to me, because that's where my passion really is. But these universities have direct implications on national security and economic prosperity.
Yeah.
And then the last area was, that I'm looking at and talking about, how do we solve this problem of the incredible difficulty we have in college athletics. And like I said, that's a whole podcast in and of itself. So I'm looking at opportunities and weighing them. I definitely would like to get back to my roots in the South, but we'll see what the future has.
Yeah, no, I love the passion that you have, because it's not often that you're able to get someone that has had that experience and sees it from a different lens. And so we've had many mentors on the podcast and wonderful stories, but to hear someone that has your passion and understands the problem as we see it, which is outcomes. We have to get those outcomes. We have to be efficient, and we have to be able to help this next generation and give them a brighter future. And to see someone that is saying the same thing from your side of the fence, right, is very encouraging, because we need universities. We need universities to be really good. We need them to be. We need them to keep up with what AI and industry and business and students need. It is the trifecta. You need students, you need preparedness, and you need business. And so the whole country benefits whenever you have solid leadership at the helm. So
yeah, and I think as we started out this discussion, you're on to helping through this enterprise approach of bringing those three things together and connecting them so it's much more efficient. Because all the time I get calls from people who say, I'm trying to get an internship at this company, and then I'll call people at the company, and it's just a one-off. But as we started out the discussion, what you're onto, Dan, you in Founding Up are onto, is being able to, in a more efficient, scalable way, connect these interests to make it easier for employers and potential employees to connect. I can remember when I first heard the concept of Founding Up, I said, well, it's a connecting enterprise driven by AI and the ability to be able to help students and employers and the university.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's hard to describe in a word all that we're doing, but it's finding identity and finding that opportunity and making the most efficient path. It's a mapping system.
Yep.
So thank you for commenting on that, and loved having you on the show, and we'll definitely have you back.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Dr. Bobby Robbins' career reflects a consistent through line: leadership grounded in service, mentorship, and measurable impact. From medicine to university presidency to national policy work at the Hoover Institution, his focus remains on helping institutions deliver real outcomes, stronger students, clearer pathways, and lasting public value. His perspective offers a thoughtful lens on the future of higher education, research, and leadership at scale. For those invested in the future of Texas A&M, higher education, or the systems that shape opportunity, this conversation is a reminder that strong leadership begins with clarity of mission and a commitment to those being served. Thank you for listening to Uncharted, your sidekick for life.